rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. I would like to amend the agenda. One good second. All those in favor of amending the agenda, please say aye. Okay, the only thing I really need to do is under CPI violations, we can remove 110 Windjammer Road if they have come into compliance. And under appointments, we're adding appointment of Tom Piatti, first term budget finance. Any questions or concerns with that? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda as amended with those two items. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the agenda as amended, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm not going to tell her.
All right, that's what we're doing. Next item on the agenda is approval of minutes from the July 6th regular meeting. I'll entertain a motion to, I'm sorry, stand by, oversight on my part. Please come out of dial with comments. Apologies, folks, I forgot, Director Daly is en route somewhere, we'll be dialing in.
Please enter the conference pin. You are currently the only person in this conference.
You may not get in.
All right, what I'll do is I'll send Frank a text to say the conference bridge is open. Stand by, folks. I'm digging the music. Hey, Charlie.
Just go nice and slow.
You see this building here?
Yes.
This is what Marty Clark will say, intentionally trying
Okay.
to avoid a referendum.
It's bulkheads.
Don't worry about it.
What I'm telling you.
Don't worry about it. Just do it. Nobody's going to ask me these questions. I see the board.
Better be there. That's right. In the back.
They'll run out the door.
Text is out.
He says they're waiting.
Okay, that's fine. All right.
Is there an agenda?
There is. So, wait, what did you say again?
Okay, sorry for the interruption, folks. Director Daly, I just sent a text so if you get a chance to call into the conference, you will. In the meantime, the next item on the agenda is spoke with the minutes from the July 6th meeting. I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented. So moved. Is there a second? Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the July 6th regular meeting minutes as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Next item, President's remarks. First of all, I want to welcome our new board colleagues, Larry, Tom, and Camilla. Looking forward to working together as a team. We've had great opportunities to look at a lot of the good things that are going on in the business of running Ocean Pines, so looking forward to a successful and productive year. Thank you for Ocean Pines. The other thing I wanted to bring up, and I'll tell myself a little bit, I was a big stickler about
You're supposed to have the clicker.
public comments doing just that, public comments.
Yeah.
And I was pretty stringent about saying, it's not a discussion. This year, I am going to be a little more flexible in the sense that if there's an opportunity to answer a question without getting into a 15-minute debate or discussion, then certainly we will do that. So I'm a little more open to answering any kind of questions that may come up, as long as it doesn't, again, end up in a long discussion and turn a 2-hour meeting into a 4-hour meeting. So again, just a minor change in public comments. I don't want to too much, but again, we'll try to get some information to the public when they, ask those questions and so on and so forth. Beyond that, let's move forward. The next item on the agenda is the GM report. John Mello.
Okay. Thank you, Doug. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Do I need this so you can hear me without it?
For the TV.
For the TV, hopefully. Okay, so let's go to the GM report, please. So as soon as we get there, I'll start. Okay, thank you, Michelle. Okay, so we've seen this list before. It does grow, but we also do cross off items as we go. So the North Star project, led by the two Steves, we are in progress. The original timeline went into September, October. The update I received this week, even though it was yellow, was that we are still on track, give or take a week or two, which I'm fine with, considering that we're putting in the North Star system during the busiest time of the year, and our resources are stretched. So we are on track. There are some items they're working on with the North Star team. The last two updates I've received seems positive moving ahead. As far as the clubhouse, we've talked about that. We're on track with that as of now. As far as budget, the budget information, all the invoices that we've paid with oversight from BNF and CFO, we're on target and on budget. Probably see some activity there in September, which was originally planned. Police building, Cart Barn, somewhere around October, again on track. I know they're in the permits. A lot of information going back and forth, but as of now, I believe everything is on track. The Matador contract, that'll be crossed off. We all know by now that that's been completed. After this, that will come off the list. Bench strength. Bench strength is something that I've talked about since my first day here. We are cross-training our team. I believe that if with a cross-trained team, we'll be more efficient, and that will definitely help as far as our budget and expenses going forward. It's also very good to cross-train our employees to make them more valuable, whether it's with Ocean Pines or wherever else in their career. And I can tell you with every one of my direct reports, we're working on that, and that will filter down in the organization. Compensation study, Michelle's leading that. There is a team in place. We are kind of now taking the team down to less people. It is moving, it is on track. You all know that we have a contract with an outside firm, Simpson. The contract was somewhere in the $48,000 to $51,000 range, well below what was approved. So there should be some positive impact there. However, we do know that in the budget, the original budget, it was somewhere around $20,000. So I have to make up probably $30,000 there, and I'll show you in a later slide. But I believe that the team that we can cover that. We are doing a lot of the work on the compensation study ourselves, and that's how we're saving it as far as job descriptions and many other items. And we have a team approach. We have outside people helping us, like every other project we have. Craft building. Debbie, so the craft building, there's been some site work done. Eddie and his team has prepared the site in accordance with what it was agreed upon with the contractor. I believe, if I don't mix up the day, somewhere around September 3rd, we should see activity from the outside contractor. Crabbing Pier, mid-July, this will come off also. This is completed, Nomi Violante and his team. We do have pictures of that. The price, I know people were asking me on it, was $22,500. Guest Wi-Fi at Yacht Club Plaza. Something that we have been asked about. I know Steve and his team are working on it. The last update I received, or Kobe just received, was that they are waiting for Comcast. So once we have all that in place, we should have guest Wi-Fi. Golf course, Andre and John, as you know, a lot of changes down there with the clubhouse and everything, but when you see when I get the financials for July, that team down at the golf course has kept everything on track with the original budget. So even with all the change and the stress on the course from the weather or whatever, that's good. We're still on track with that, and I'll show you the numbers that back that up. Okay, next, let me put this one last. Yeah, let me put it last.
Did you say, excuse me, did you say Comcast you're waiting on at the Yacht Club?
That's correct. Okay, maybe that'll be covered later. That was the feedback I received on that. So I guess they're looking at, we'll leave that for now. Where am I? The RFP for the staging area. The staging area is being addressed. I know I've had several people either call me or come to me and say what's going on with the staging area. I can tell you that the team is working diligently on it. There are meetings this week. We are addressing it. In the meantime, there are some temporary situations. There has been something that has been brought to my attention about a rusty barge, which was addressed, but I just want to make it, everybody understand some background on that. That rusty barge was not in contract with us in any way or anything that was Ocean Pines. That was something from another company. Colby and her team have worked on it aggressively, and I believe they have addressed the situation this week, but keep in mind, that's not Ocean Pines, and that's not even a company we're contracting with. But we have to obey and abide by any laws out there. Colby, Eddie, others, they have worked on that. You'll see, I saw this morning as well as the other day when I saw the tug coming, that barge is gone. And it is continued to be addressed. I'm confident in Colby and the team on what they're doing on it is basically what I believe we can do. So if anybody has any questions on that, I'll be glad, or Colby or Eddie after the meeting to address it. But we are addressing it. I don't want anybody to think we're not. Okay? RFP accounting firm, that will be worked on. I'll put a small team together, and we will definitely address that. Beginning the budget FY 2020-2021 process. We're already working on it. All my direct reports are putting together schedules as far as capital. Steve Phillips is going to oversee that for me. Colby and her team are already working on it. She's already got meetings going, as well as my other direct reports. As far as bulkheads, dredging, and drainage, which Colby's going to go into an in-depth presentation today on that. Everything is spelled out, her and her team. Part of that process and part of that presentation is not only addressing this year's needs, but future needs, as well as what we need for the budget. So this budget process that we're just starting now, we have work papers that will substantiate what we need for that budget. So that is something that we're already vetting. We will already discuss with several board members and everybody else. So when we do something now, everything has more than just the current purpose, so that it will save us time going forward, and it'll help us with the budget process. Okay. That's all in the GM report. Okay, Colby will go into the bulkheads, drainage, and dredging, which has a separate presentation. Okay, next slide.
John, thank you.
All righty. So, a little different now. We will continue. I did also get some requests on this, or understanding. Will we still have the financial presentations the same, if not more detailed than what we had in the past? And the answer is yes, even though I am not the treasurer. I do work hand in hand with Larry. Larry who's our new treasurer, he will talk to you about his oversight on the GM as well as the whole finance program here. So I'll leave that for his presentation. But as far as the operations and the detail there, I will present that, or some combination of my team at times. I will continue that. That's normal in any type of association or corporation. The treasurer will focus on the cash, the investments, our reserves. Very important. And his oversight and the B&F oversight on that, as well as forecasts. Okay? So with that, let's go. So we're looking at the month of July. Revenues over budget, $64,000. Expenses over budget, $9,000. Kind of to be expected, to support the revenues, especially when you're dealing with food and beverage. So net operating, favorable, $55,000. We're going to change that bracket next month, okay? Turn the page. So let me give you some detail on that. So on this slide, breaking out where the favorability was in our budget, we were $100,000 favorable, which was offset by unfavorable variances of $45,000, bringing it to the $55,000. Let me give you a little more detail on that month's slide so that these numbers make sense to you. On the favorability side, if I was to look at Public Works, favorable $6,000. Aquatics, $22,000. When you get deeper into it, Colby and her team at the Aquatics had a really good month with swim classes. I'm sure the weather had a lot to do with it also, but they were favorable, $22,000. Beach Club, $29,000. The favorability there was an increase in revenue, the Madwart factor, as well as what I'm seeing, and I like what I'm seeing, margin improvement. That's what I'm looking at. Okay, Yacht Club, favorable $5,000. The Marina, we have the Ron Fisher factor, $15,000 favorable. Ron told us the weather, obviously, which you'll hear more and more about the variations, as well as the pricing. I've mentioned this before, and I'll continue to mention it because I want all my direct reports, as well as me doing it. We benchmark Nobody does it better than Ron. He's got all the facts, all the information on the pricing for gas, and he certainly reflects in his margins as well as his favorability. Okay, I'll take general admin, manager's office, and finance. Favorable, 19,000. A lot of oversight on us, on the team. The reason I'm highlighting that is because I am going to give you some prior year numbers, and just keep that in mind when I show you what happened last year. I also am going to try to put it, not try, I will put in more information as far as variances going forward, not just the budget for this year, which is very important, but also the prior year. I'm getting feedback on that. I know Jeff sat with me. He would like to see it. In the course of my career, I always did also present to prior year, so I'm open to that, and we will do it. Golf was favorable by $3,000 for the month. Again, weather had a big part of it. I can tell you that the green fees were up, and that's a good sign, because that's one of the benchmarks we're tracking there. Keep in mind that we do have a course now that's the building's under construction, so we're adopting. The positive there is that we are, if not neutral to budget with everything else going on. I feel that's a win. Okay, the unfavorable variances, a section I don't want to be in, but beach parking, 15,000, but favorable overall. So it was unfavorable for the month. I'll call it timing. That's the input I've received. But what I would emphasize there, and they're always good point when I have something that's unfavorable, year to date, they're very favorable. Okay? Rec and Parks, unfavorable 11,000. However, point out, 4th of July, Rec and Parks team did a lot of work for that, as well as the police department, the public works. I know Kobe was involved with it. It was a team effort, but there were costs for that gala that Rec and Parks, had to cover. So even though we're favorable for the month, I can tell you going forward, as well as year to date, they're favorable. Again, a good sign. Public relations is unfavorable, $18,000. It's timing. I'm going to call it transition. The person I have in place there now has already given me everything I've asked for as far as a summary projection for the year. We've gone through the expenses. I understand where that came from. I'm going to call it timing. I'm not pleased with it. I mentioned this before, but I have the right man in place, and we will go forward and do fine. Okay? We're also making adjustments there so that I know that we'll be favorable to budget and still cover everything that we want. So, favorable to budget, $55,000 for the month. All right, let's go year to date. Let's do this quick. Revenues over budget, favorable, $307,000. Expenses over budget, under budget, $1,900. $309,000 favorable. 3 months. I know this is our busiest season. I know this is where we make our money. I'm going to compare this to last year for you, as well as tell you where we're tracking, okay? If I look at last year, year-to-date, July 31st, we were unfavorable, approximately $7,000. The admin and management budget was unfavorable, $51,000 year-to-date last year. This year, what did I tell you a little earlier? We're favorable. We're all over it. Budget and Finance addressed that last year. I can tell you Larry Perone on the Budget and Finance, once we saw that situation was happening, there was a lot of study on it, there was a lot of review to capture and understand what was happening. We've addressed it for this year, and so far we've kept it in line. So a big difference there on those departments, year to year. General maintenance last year was unfavorable. I know they did a lot of work that wasn't in the budget but was needed. That happens, and that's fine. Also last year we did the weather, apparently from what I'm being told by department heads, was not as favorable for us as it is this year. Okay, turn the slide. Okay, so this I basically just went through that with you, the $309,000. Let's go to the next slide. I may ask, okay, I'm just going to ask you to just flip these 2 slides, please, Michelle. Okay, so this is the slide that we should have next, giving you the detail of the $309,000. This is 3 months year to date. Yacht Club, don't need to explain anymore, right? Talked about beach parking. I told you recs and parks, even though they were unfavorable for the month, favorable year to date. A lot of good things happening there. They do generate revenue. They have some really good programs going on. Public Works, favorable. And I believe from the calls I receive or don't receive, how positive and how they're moving forward versus what I saw last year, even from a different seat, when I heard about it. just driving here every day, I can see that everything, the lawns, everything is done. I see the mowers out there. Everything seems to be working for me. Beach Club favorable, golf ops favorable, GM office favorable, big difference from last year. Marinas, I'm not going to get into it why. Marinas favorable, finance and admin favorable, okay? Several of those last year were unfavorable. I believe we have the oversight and the team in place now to make sure that doesn't happen. Okay, some unfavorable, all right? Aquatics unfavorable, but a lot of good things happening there. And there was some changes made, but I believe that they're going to have a good year. Public relations, I spoke about that. I'll put the onus on me to correct it. Josh certainly is. Police, a little unfavorable. Again, the 4th of July, a couple items like that. Tennis platform, kind of unfavorable on CPI. Bottom line is this, 309,000 favorable. Okay, from the page. Okay, so granted, we're 3 months in, and we know that we do utilize cash, or we have a use of cash after the busy season in our expenses. The majority of our revenue and income is during the summer months, and we're basically, after the next month or two, that will be done. So what I just want to show you is some of the stuff that the team does to make sure that our expenses are being looked at, and that we realize that I can be able to give you a forecast, working with the CFO, for the year, which I do believe in, and I have no problem doing it any time. So here's what I'm hearing, headwinds to budget. By headwinds to budget, what I'm talking about here is something, possibly an item that was not included in the budget for whatever reason. I'll be glad to tell anybody why it wasn't, but here's what I'm left with, and here's what we're addressing. So the chemicals for the golf course, I'm being told that I have $30,000 probably of expense that was not included in the budget. I can tell you John Malinowski, our golf pro, is working on that. He's working on it already as soon as it was identified. He has had a consultant in there helping him. Now, we are short-handed there for the moment, and we believe that we can get that number down and still keep that course where it's needed. So this would be an example, and again, it was last year's budget. Whatever happened, happened. But for my situation, even when I was the treasurer, even as the GM, I just want to point out to this board and everybody else, I understand about cutting costs. I understand when it comes budget time. I understand the pressure that those 7 people up there go through. But when you cut costs, where there's no analysis and no rhyme or reason why to do it, you are cutting costs at any cost, and odds are it's going to cost you somewhere. I'm not going to jeopardize that cost because somebody just inadvertently said cut the cost right there. The professionals will tell me what we need, but we are looking at it. Compensation study, so we all know about that. The motion was 100,000, we got it down to somewhere around 50. Being told, I thought it was 25, but we have 20,000 in the budget, so I have to make up $30,000. I'm fine with that, the team's fine with that, we are addressing it, and I believe we have it covered. Restrooms, beach club. We received, or I received input from aquatics as well as food and beverage that we needed somebody to maintain those bathrooms, somebody to watch over it. I always believed that we needed that. It was not included in the budget. The estimate, I told them to do it. The estimate I received was higher than that. I believe with the management of Kobe and her team that they've gotten it at a decent price, the 5,000 stands. So I am okay with that. And again, we'll cover that. Kobe will cover it. Marina Docks, security guard, $2,500. When somebody comes to me, whether it's Ron, Kobe, whatever, and tells me I have a security issue or I have a safety issue somewhere, we're going to address it one way or the other. I believe, Kobe believed, so did Ron Fisher, requested security there. The security was not in the budget. Again, I was told a higher number. This is the number it's coming in at. I believe we're good with that. Okay, it's needed. New capital, policy change not budgeted. So the reason this is a headwind is this. In the past, we capitalized all expenses for capital items over $2,000. Over $2,000. There was a policy change which was approved and went right down the ranks to change that to $5,000. So whether I was the BNF chair at the time, treasurer, or whatever, I understood why people wanted it at $5,000. And that's pretty much, if you go to any corporation or anywhere else, it is $5,000. However, and I've always felt this in the sense, and again, that was the majority, everybody wanted it, that's fine. But here's the point I made back then, and what I believe, what I'm hearing did not happen. If you're gonna go to 5,000, you're gonna have a bigger hit to your P&L and your operating account for the year, and that needed to be budgeted. And from what I'm being told and what I'm seeing, it was not budgeted or put into the budget. Thus, I'm going to have an unfavorable variance. Right now, Kobe and her team are tracking it with all the other department heads. They're giving me an update. Right now, we're saying that might be $12,000. It's not a lot, but it is a headwind. It's something that we have to address. Crab and Pier, $22,500. Okay, that's completed. We have pictures. But again, that was not in the budget. There was a capital item in the budget for a pier, which obviously I should have some favorability on the capital side, which right now is not P&L. This is a hit to the P&L, $22,500. Just giving everybody a summary of the expenses that we believe at this time for the year, which was not part of the budget. And the next line, referendum, question marks. So I put that on there. Obviously, I do not have a cost for that. I don't have an estimate for it. I have some guesstimates, but again, depending on what happens. There has been something, I read the forum, I read the papers, I'm in tune with that, I hear different numbers, I've heard different board members at the annual meeting where other people stand up. If there is a referendum, and that's up to the people, nothing on my end. All my job is to understand and to get a summary of what those costs are, regardless of what way we go. We do what the people of Ocean Pines wants. I'm just saying, depending on that situation, there will be a cost, which is part of the process. It's just my job to present it and to make sure everybody understands what that cost is. So if there is, that would affect that approximately $100,000 headwinds that I have. Okay? Good. Thank you. Okay, so next up is Kobe. So we did that one. Kobe's got a really good presentation.
Morning, everybody.
Morning.
Michelle, can you do this? Actually, the second one. Thank you. So this is just the topics I'm going to be going over. So we'll, public works, drainage, roads, bulkheads, dredging, where we are on major projects, and then amenities. So if you have one of these pamphlets, we'll go to the next page, and then the following one. Sorry, these are just to keep them all separate. So right now, this is where we currently are in the drainage fiscal year 2019 to 2020. These are the projects that we're looking to get done, the pipes that we're looking to get replaced. Some of them have already been completed. And if you remember, Mumford's Landing was completed in-house, which gave us that large savings there. The smaller neighborhood pipe replacements are pipes that we get throughout the community where people reach out to us and we go and evaluate the situation and if we can get those replaced at that time. But the top part is all budgeted for this current fiscal year. The bottom piece down there is our operational budget. So that is where we're doing the maintenance on the ditches, where we are bringing in extra help to help us with getting those cleaned out. Okay, next slide, please. So the last few months I've been bringing up at the meetings that we've been working really hard on trying to get a plan of action on our drainage. I just want to reiterate that unfortunately the drainage problem isn't something that we are able to fix, but we are working really hard to try and improve it. So we're going to continue to educate the public on pieces that we're along the way that we're going to be working on, what things you can do to help. We've been clearing out the ditches, which we, with the drier weather, have been able to really get a good headwind on getting those done and a lot of them completed. We're going to continue to address the failing pipes, and we're also going to be creating a ditch maintenance list. So what that is the ditches that are behind people's homes, that are on the side of their homes. We're going to have a list made of all of those ditches and then do a continual clean out of those ditches. So we'll start, we've already started a bunch. Those will be added to the list. We'll get all the way through the list, and then we'll go back through, and then that way we're not missing any, so that we can continue to get that. Because the biggest thing is really just for us to keep that maintenance on those ditches cleaned out. Okay, next. please. So what we've done is we've created a phase 1. We're currently working on phase 2, but this is phase 1. And looking back through all of the studies that have been done, and it's been recommended to us that we do not need any more studies because there's been several over the last 2 decades that have been done. Section 3 and Section 2, but Section 3 more so, has been deemed the worst in Ocean Pines. So this is what we're starting to put together, that we'll have a presentation on costs to present to the general manager on the board on what we'd like to see in the first phase. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to address other areas. For instance, right now we're looking at Clipper Court, we're looking at a pipe on Seafair. That doesn't mean we're not looking at other areas. This is just the first section that we need to start in based on all the studies, based on what we've evaluated, and this will actually really help a lot of homes in that area. And I have a map, I'll hold up, but you guys can look at it after if you'd like as well. It's on the, can you go to the next one? Thank you. It's here, it's really small for you all, but one of the things that we're looking to do is work our way backwards to Bainbridge Pond and get a weir structure put in. It's a dam. I had to learn that myself, so I wasn't sure when they first said it to me. But that will help us when we're getting ready to get a large storm. We can control the outflow of the water that's coming out of there. We're also looking to do a berm around the entire area there. The homes that sit on that side get really flooded when that pond raises up, and so we're looking to raise that up. And that's, right now, we're waiting on an estimated cost on that. So we're working with Vista Engineering that's helping us with this project. So if you have any questions afterwards on that, or you want to see that closer, you can meet up with myself and Eddie and Nobi. Again, I just want to reiterate that drainage is something that is really important to us as a team. I know it's important to the board. We've met with county officials. We're really trying to get a jump start on anything that we can do to improve the situation in Ocean Pines, because we do recognize that it is a problem. And again, we can't fix it, but we're going to do what we can to improve it. Okay. So these are the larger ditches. So when I was going back to telling you we're starting a list, these are ditches that we've had cleaned out in July and August. We've been using also a local contractor that's come in and help us because our staffing is small on the ditch maintenance. But we've been able to get a headwind on this. This does not include ditches that we've done that are smaller around the community that people have called in about. But we are working really hard to keep that going, and they're going to be getting ready to start on the next 5. Eventually, once we have this list, it'll be accessible, so you can see where we are. If you're around one, you can find out, how we're maintaining that and when you might be the next time through. So, thank you. Okay, road paving. So we have 2 studies that were done on our roads. One was done from Vista Engineering, one we did in-house with Clint Parks. Both of those matched up, and they're graded from a 1 through a 10. So 1 is the poor roads, and up to 10 would be the better roads. Road conditions can change, however, year to year, but we also are putting this in a phased plan. Next slide, please. So this is what we just put out to bid. We received the bids back yesterday. These estimated cost numbers were prior to us receiving the bids back, but they are within that range still. This was just what we had based on our engineering study. And these roads are looked to be started this fall. I will point out that the Clubhouse Road will not be done, although it's been bid out and we've gotten a price back on it. It won't be done until the country club is finished. We don't want to have too much chaos going back to there. So that'll be done hopefully in the spring. And then, so these are the roads that we're looking to be done in phase 2. The reason why we're doing phases because we don't want to do years in case we have more money in our budget and we're able to hit some more from the next phase, or vice versa. We don't have enough money to do all of a phase. That way we can just keep track of it by phases. But these are the roads that we're looking to do in the next phase. And then, if those of you that remember the DMA study that was done, all of the roads that matched up from our engineering study and our in-house study were all expected to be done by 2018, so they are in match with the DMA study as far as the first 2 phases, and then we'll be looking at the other roads for phase 3 that are in there. And again, we may get another road between now and then that comes up that's deemed worse that we'll add into that process.
Goal B is the north gate right after you cross the bridge on that, I can see something.
No, it was asked if the north gate was on there. The north gate's not on there, but that's one that we can address, that we'll look at too. So. Okay, the bulkhead plan. So again, if you are involved in the bulkheads, the last few months, the team, Novi and Eddie and I, especially Novi, you won't want me to give him a shout out, but I'm going to, has worked really hard on organizing our bulkheads. It's really important to us that we keep the communication with the homeowners and keep everybody up to date on what we're doing. We know that we lacked in that a little bit before, but we're working really hard to make sure that we're communicating as we're going forward what our plan is. So this is a little bit more in years, even though I have the phase in there, just in case we're able to, like I said, add or we have to push something back in case there's an emergency that comes up. But the orange is what we're currently getting ready to start on, which is phase 1. So that'll be what we're looking to start on. All the letters have gone out to those homeowners. Those homeowners have started to reach out to us because we want to be able to go, the contractor, as well as Novi will be meeting with each individual homeowner to go over what that plan is going to be. The reason why these homes have bumped up, they do not match where we are in the DMA study, is because of the worm damage. The worm damage to these homes is so bad that we needed to jump around and reorder where we are on the bulkheads. We are going to be going to vinyl, which will give us more longevity in the bulkheads, and so that should be a good help for us there. And I want
all bulkheads are now be vinyl?
yes, all the bulkheads going forward will be vinyl.
Have we reached any firm timeline on when these things are going to be done?
They're going to be done between October 1st and the end of April.
Oh, it's October, because the letter said September.
Well, they'll
14th.
start meeting with you, coming out and meeting, and then
Oh,
if you have
those will be
a...
meetings then?
Yeah, if you-
I thought, from my reading of the letter, I thought they said September 14th was when construction.
Well, they might be starting on one of the homes. Maybe, do you know if they're going to start right on September? No, it's October.
That'll be staging and prepping and getting.
Yeah, they're just prepping. So our goal is to do the bulkheads between October 1st and the end of April, and that's it.
Yeah, because a lot of us need to schedule electrical
Yep,
removal and
Yep,
such.
and we will make sure, in the letter, hopefully it gave you a contact to reach out to us, and then I know that Novi and the contractors have been going around to try and meet up with the homeowners in case there's any specific questions, so that we can address those, absolutely. But again, it's important to us with the bulkheads that we keep that line of communication open, and then we try and get the work done when we say we're going to get that work done. Weather does have a play in that, and obviously all of these plans that I'm showing you, there's always possibility for change. And then the cost on there, on all of these, are estimated costs. The final cost will be presented to the board and general manager once those come in. The next few slides are just showing the mappings of our phases, which we actually have larger, if you want to look at them after. This is our phase 1 plan, which is what we're going to be starting this fall. The next slide is phase 2 through 4, and then phase 4 continued there. So that is on the bulkhead plan. Okay. And the next slide. So for our dredging, we've had a lot of questions come up about dredging. Right now we have 18 permits that have been submitted. We're waiting to get those back. Going forward, anybody that has a request for dredging needs to have their permit in by October 15th. And this is so that we can submit them to the Army Corps of Engineers by November 1st. It takes almost till the end of May for us to get those back, and then those will take place the following fall. We're going to be taking 20 permits a year. This will also help us to budget for that number, And, if you have any questions on the dredging, this is the spot dredging. You can certainly, again, reach out to myself or Eddie and Ruby, and we'll stay after the meeting too if anyone has any questions. Okay. I've been showing this each month at the board meeting. This is the bulkhead contract spending to date. Those are the 3 contractors and where they are. And then I have the line for the fiscal year spend to date, because some of those contracts started in the last fiscal year. So that's just where we are to date on those being completed, and then where we are with our fiscal year spend. This is our major projects spending to date. Again, everything, Park Barn and Craft Building and Police Building are still in the very, very early stages. So those will, over the next few months, go up a little bit, but the other 2 are right now within where they need to be. And then the amenities, we just had the new pool deck redone. It looks beautiful. If you're a pool member, you'll be very happy. If you're not, you should come by and see it. It looks really good. The pickleball lines out here will be done starting September 9th, and will take 4 days. We're adding the 3rd pickleball court in here. And then I just wanted to touch base. One of the other things that the team and I are working on is maintenance plans of every facility. So we will have a maintenance plan done on every facility that each manager of that facility will be responsible for, and then each person will have a part in those maintenance plans. We'll be determining what needs to be done in-house, what we need to contract out, coming up with the pricing on that, and moving forward so that we can keep up on all of our facilities and our parks. So, thank you.
Since we're being delightfully informal, can I ask John a couple of questions on his report?
Can we hold it until either public comments or right after the meeting?
Well, you've allowed 5 or 6 already.
I know
Sorry.
it's doing what I had anticipated it might end up doing.
It's taken about 10 seconds for each one.
John, go right ahead.
Thank you.
Let's stop it for a minute.
John, it's trivial stuff. John, 2 things. One, it seems to me that last year, the racket sports were a separate line. This year, I assume they're under aquatics.
No.
Well,
I don't
there
know where
wasn't
that
a
came
separate favorable, unfavorable for racket this year. There was last year. Is that a change?
So the racket is and will continue to be separate. I didn't, sorry. So I will break that out, I'll show you afterwards. I didn't, it's the one thing that I didn't think was major to put in there.
Oh, no.
But it's not, it's
No
not, so
problem.
to
I
answer
just
your
wanted to
question, it's
bring it
not
to
part of aquatics, it's separate. There has been some unfavorability there. It's small. I have a big number there. I didn't put every little item there. I summarized some, but in no way to answer your original question was a part of aquatics.
Okay.
But I can give you that after the meeting.
Second real quick one is you listed under the favorables for last year, unfavorables, paddle and tennis. It's trivial, but I would add pickle, since that's...
I understand why you're doing it. I can give you the numbers afterwards. Yeah, it's small in the whole scheme of things. I didn't want to get that granular, but I certainly will going forward.
Steve Tuttle would have been annoyed if he didn't have pickle there.
It's the minimus, but I'll take care of it.
John, I think it's our intent going forward to combine those budget lines.
So, right, so with the new system, I do want a consolidated racket sports P&L, which is what the treasurer is alluding to. We will have that. I certainly will going forward break it out, even if it is small, whatever, but please, in no way is it being combined with aquatics. It just was a small number, and I already had a lot of detail there. But I will give you the information after the meeting if anybody wants it.
Doug, thanks for yielding.
Yeah, thank you. All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the treasurer's report, Raglan.
Thank you. As John mentioned, the role of the treasurer is to provide financial oversight for the association. My job or responsibilities at this point are to do the financial oversight of the general manager, the finance lead, and the budget and finance committee. Fortunately, I think we all have a great working relationship, so we have a lot of conversation, and we're all up to date and have a good idea of what's going on financially. One of the main items that we look at for financial oversight include the monthly bank reconciliations. we look at the cash and our short-term investments to make sure that we are keeping up with markets and that our cash situation is sufficient enough to cover our expenditures through the entire year. Now, John mentioned we're about $309,000 ahead of favorable so far this year, but we still have the months coming forward where we have not nearly as much income coming in. We've got to get to April 30th. Also, I will keep an eye on our large disbursements, and probably most importantly is keeping a close track of our reserve funds and forecasting. We are forecasting on a monthly basis how our reserves are going to, how they are currently, and then how they will, how we think they will end up at the end of the year. Next slide, please. So here's the our reserve slide sheet. You can see the top line shows what our balance was as of April 30th, 19. For replacement reserves, we started out at $5.2 million. Currently, as of July 31st, that number was $6.4 million. Now remember, we've got 4 major projects going on right now, and our total replacement reserve spend is and you'll see it in the forecast information I have, but we're looking to spend about $4.3 million as we move through the year to pay for the projects we have scheduled. Bulkheads, $2.5 million to start. We're currently at, as of July 31st, 2.8. And again, I'd like to point out that, basically our bulkhead program had been shut down for 2 years for, I'm sure everybody knows the reasons that went on. We've now got it up and running again. And the same with the roads, $1.1 million, and with our casino funds added this year, $1.4. And again, the roads, we haven't done roads for a couple of years because of various reasons. So the total, as of the end of April, was 8.8, and we are, as of July 31st, we are at $10.6 million, which we're okay with that number at this point. Next slide, please. So this is our forecast slide, and we'll be making these slides every month so that everybody, not only I have an idea where we're at, so that the community has an idea where we're at. So you can see we've got the balance numbers again as of 4/30, and then the major portion of this slide that I want to draw your attention to is the expenditure column. You can see that we are expecting to spend almost 1.3 on the admin and police building. The country club is 1.6 million. And then the various other smaller projects, Cart Barn, the North Star program. North Star is part of our replacement reserve project. Whiteworth Park equipment, which has already been installed. You can see the beautiful playground outside. Craft building, the yacht club and beach club improvements and additions or replacement items that have been purchased. Additional work that needed to be done at the golf course. And of course, Colby just talked to you about what has been going on over at Lodge. We put the new decking in, and of course, if you've driven by, you'll see there's a new, we've done the parking lot, and it's, is it open now, Colby? Yes.
Well, you can, the pool itself will open on Monday, but you can go in on tomorrow if you need to register for anything.
And again, the same thing for our bulkheads. As I mentioned earlier, we are, the program for bulkheads and roads has been shut down for a couple of years. And again, as Colby said, Eddie and Gobi have been really working hard. We're expecting this year to spend $1.6 million on the bulkheads, and in the spring, $770,000. So you'll see that by the end of this year, we're projecting that our total reserve accounts total should be just under $5.2 million. So when you hear people say we've got $15 million, and what are we doing with it? Well, The reality of it is when we budget in all the projected spend, it's not as big a number as you think. Next slide, please. And again, from an oversight standpoint, working with Steve Phillips, the budget and finance team, and with John, again, one of the things that I'm looking at on a monthly basis is where we are in regard to our investments and our rate of return. Through July, because of some good decisions in regard to CDs, the CDRs and money markets, we're averaging 2.5% return through July, which is a pretty good number. As of July 31st, we had approximately $15.8 million in cash, and that's broken down into $4.8 million invested in CDRs that are fully insured by the FDIC, and then approximately $11 million in money market earning approximately 2%. And of course, we have our other operating account, which takes care of our day-to-day expenses, is also fully insured. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Next item on the agenda is public comments. Be advised that you make a public comment, you could please state your name and your address. The floor is now open for public comments, and we have a microphone right over here, right here to the right.
My name is Richard Claggett, and I live at 166 Sandy Hook Road. I've lived there for full-time for 15 years. We've had the place for 18. What I want to make a comment about is the drainage. And I'm pleased to see the activity, the work that's being done, and also the planning. I do have a concern about what Colby just presented. And one of the things I see in that plan is we're opening up the pipes going through the community, but we're not opening up the pipes going out of the community. And when we get and I've watched this for 15 years, and I know how the water flows. I've been to Snow Hill. I'm an engineer. I've gone down and talked to the engineers at Snow Hill. And part of our problem is the jury rig that was put in place. The plan laid out by the original folks that laid the community out was never implemented. So I don't think we're going to solve that, but I just want to mention that. But the problem is, if you increase the flow through the community, what happens if you can't get it out of the community? So I believe your plan is going to help with moderate rains, but flooding rains, I'm afraid what you're going to do is flood the Pinehurst and Sandy Hook area further. Because now you have the throttling of water coming out of Bay Bridge Pond. If you open those pipes up, you're going to get more water flowing downstream. And believe me, when we flood, it's because of river run pipes are just full, where they've been clogged up and haven't been drained properly, haven't been cleaned up properly. So that's all I wanted to say. So it's just a concern I have. I appreciate all the activity that's going on. I just want you to think about that a little bit before you open all that up.
Just not.
Thank you.
So your name again?
Richard Claggett, C-L-A-G-E-T-T.
Hey, Michelle, I'm just technically, we're not online streaming.
Yeah.
There is a technical.
Yeah. Yeah,
We're going to pair audio and video after the meeting
Yeah.
and post it.
Josh,
Other public comments?
There. Hi, my name's Ron Jones, I live at 175 Teal. So, my bulkhead, the drain pipe going out, they had a piece of plywood over it. And plywood has pulled away and it started eating out the dirt underneath of it. About 8 weeks ago, I guess, Colby, you were at my house, 6-8 weeks ago. They come over, they threw some dirt in the hole to backfill it. And then they said it would probably be a couple weeks and they would schedule to fix the bulkhead so the water wouldn't keep eroding through the bulkhead. I haven't heard anything. That's been I know it's been a good 6 weeks. The drain pipe's bad going out to the river. I was told that was gonna be fixed this winter. I was all right with that. It is eroding my concrete. You can see where my concrete's on the side, that side of the house has fallen about 4 inches. If the bottom of that pipe's going, when that water comes in out of that river and goes back out, it's taking soil with it. So, I'm a pretty patient man, but, you know, it's been 6, 8 weeks and nobody has gotten back to me saying, hey, you know, I was told 2 weeks you were gonna do a temporary fix on the bulkhead. Now I'm 8 weeks into it, I've heard nothing. No correspondence whatsoever. Hey, we're held up, this ain't working, we're gonna do it then, we're gonna do it then. Nothing. I don't understand that. I mean, I went 2 separate occasions. My wife came to the meeting and said it, and then you guys were out a couple days later. But I still haven't heard anything, and I'm just wondering why.
At the risk of putting our GM on the spot, is there anything we can do, at least, you know, obviously we've heard the concerns here, there's some options that we can look into to figure out how we can address this issue, I'd like to at least consider them. Whether or not you can do them right now, at the very least, I'll have to follow up with this gentleman, who's probably warned to.
Yeah, and I'm gonna ask you to give me your information and phone number, I'll follow up. To be honest with you, I didn't get an update on this, that anybody was out there, but I'm sure they're doing everything they can. But just give me your number and phone, and name, and we'll follow up.
All right, just some kind of correspondence of
Yes.
when this is gonna be taken care
Totally
of, or if
agree.
it's not, or do I gotta do it? One or the other, it's gotta get fixed.
Understand.
And the gentleman that came out made it clear that he was not happy that I brought it up at the meeting. And that kind of irked me a little.
So right after the meeting, if we can just, if you come up here, I just need the information. Okay.
Thank you.
There will be communication after this.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you, John. Other public comments?
I'm Joe Wilkinson, 864 Ocean Parkway. I have a couple issues. I went up about the drainage ditch of my neighbors, there's trees growing in it. Apparently it's not an issue to anybody else except me. It's an obstruction coming out of my driveway off of Sand Ridge Road, and I don't know what's gonna be done about it. I cut it back myself, but I don't wanna get in trouble cutting down my neighbor's stuff. Something has to be done about this. My other issue is the pool. I bought an unexpirable pool pass. Now all of a sudden I'm told it's expired. How does that happen? Do we just not get public comment? We decide what we're gonna take away from the residents? I'm not rich. I'm retired in 6 weeks. And I will be a thorn on everybody's side. I'll be here all the time. I mean, I just keep telling everyone, I'm your average Joe. I don't think it's fair. What's next? Lifetime membership golf course, take that away too? That works. I'm just curious how we're gonna handle that.
So a couple of things. Number one, obviously, we can again look into the specifics.
Yeah, I'll get his information.
As far as if you could provide your information,
Right.
or GM, I'm sure we'll go in there and take a look at the specifics you're talking about with regard
Right.
to the tree growing in the drainage ditch. As far as the pool passes go, I think it's been a controversial issue. The best way I can explain it is the way it was explained to me, and I need somebody to correct me if I'm wrong, but if you had purchased or had a card prior to May 1st of 2019, and you had monies on that card, all that money is good. You can continue to use that card until it goes down to zero. You can't add any more to that, but you can use that. So if you had $50 on a card purchased prior to May 1st, that's good. If you purchased a swim card on May 1st or after, it was told by the administrative staff that that particular card and the monies on that card had an expiration date of April 30th, 2020.
I know it's the reason me and a lot of other people have not bought the beach pass. Beach parking, yeah, raise the money, we can't spend it, we lose it. I'm not gonna support that. I'd rather go to Assateague. And a lot of us feel that way.
I understand your logic on that, one. Can't argue with that, but I just want to give you an explanation.
Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you.
Did the board vote on that issue of the things, or was that a staff decision?
Joe, I'd have to go back and take a look, and I will. I can't off the top of my head. Other public comments?
Put up all things for a floor guy. The first thing I heard from people to come in about what goes on. I had a good consult with Joe and Kobe about my problems next door. I'm I'm very satisfied. I hope they can solve my problems next door with these people. But the reason I come here today, and I have to go a month back to the general meeting. So as you all know, I was a very supporter of Slow It Down. He quit. In my opinion, Slow It Down was one of the best board members we had. But what bothers me at most, when Tom Terry came on that meeting, and he blamed the $1.6 million loss on his time that he was on the board. You have to remember that Tom Terry and the general manager, we paid this guy $1 million in salary. That was the after effect that we lost $1.6 million. That was not the board after Tom Terry. He came and called, we got a $5 discount 1 year from the fund. I'm here to protect Slogan. I think that he's a good man, he was a good man, I feel sorry that he quit. But coming here from that guy and telling it was his problem, that we lost $1.6 million, I don't believe that. I think that was the after effect when he was 4 years president with Thompson. They brought us in the hole, nobody else. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments?
Jim Trollo, 1 Annapolis Court, Section 16. I have 2 comments this morning. Excuse me. They pertain to both of the motions before the board. My wife often tells me, get to the point, and this morning I think I had a perhaps extra reason to having acquired congestion, nasal discomfort, and whatever in the last 12 to 16 hours, so I'm going to try to move right along. My first comment pertains to the motion regarding moving forward with the referendum on the capital expenditures. In particular, it refers to the petition that preceded the motion today. From the bylaws, section 5.14L, it says as follows. The board shall consider a petition submitted under 4.07C at a meeting of the board within 60 days of the petition being filed. There's no evidence of any such meeting. There's no evidence of an open meeting. There's no evidence of a closed meeting. And if there is an informal action, unanimous consent procedure, there's no evidence of that either. The statement issued by the association in conjunction with the release of what is described as the attorney's opinion, clearly appear to indicate a rejection by the board. Where's the meeting? The attorney himself recognized the need for the board to make a decision. In his memorandum, it says as follows. The board of directors needs to decide whether it wishes to allow either petition to move forward or confirm that both petitions do not meet the requirements of section 4.08. Again, the attorney, in his memo to you, made that statement, make a decision, and there cannot be any question that decisions of the board are made at meetings. The board, by its failure to have a meeting, has denied the rights of the membership to hear and see the board process of making its decisions. It's failed to allow the board to make its public comments on the business before the board of directors. The board owes the membership an explanation of why those rights have been denied. Now, the second comment has to do, again, with the motion regarding the creation of a new capital reserve fund. Excuse me. Now, I know that the board has received an email from Joe Reynolds regarding this. That email, perhaps some of you haven't seen it, but the email was posted on a local forum yesterday afternoon. And I had previous to that intended to make a comment this morning to the effect that yes, the creation of a reserve fund must be done by virtue of a resolution approved by the board. And that, there's no question about that. Going briefly beyond that, and at this point in time, I'm going to go back a little bit. I should have probably at the beginning said that my comments on the petition in the context of my personal views. I acknowledge that I'm a member and the chair of the Bylaws and Resolutions Advisory Committee. Those comments were in no manner representative of the committee. In my comments on this motion regarding the new capital, the new capital, I do have to make a comment or two about that as the chairman of the committee. Not necessarily representative, but as the chairman, express some comments. If you go forward with the fund, the resolution is required. I would urge you to look at the existing resolution F03, which covers all of the current funds, and resist, if possible, creating a separate resolution. The Bylaws Resolutions Committee some time ago, years ago, adopted a policy of consolidating the same topic into a small number of resolutions as can be done. And originally, years ago, there were maybe half a dozen resolutions on reserve funds that said almost the same thing, just changed the title in the resolution. Same thing with amenities policies. You go to one real resolution for each, and you can find out everything you need to know, or at least hope you find everything you need to know. So when you get to a resolution, if you get that far, please consider not creating a separate resolution unless you really think it's necessary. The third item I want to comment, and this goes in particular back to Joe's email, and that's just to make it short and simple, advisory opinions. Bylaws and Resolutions Advisory Committee is an advisory committee to the board of directors. We are at least skeptical of giving advisory opinions outside of that direct board path. And the simple reason why is the best I can explain it. We don't want to be giving advisory opinions on something that's going to go to the board of directors. We give our opinion or our views, or however you want to say it. And our purpose primarily is to see whether or not we can find or not find conflicts with the governing documents. That's our basic charter. Whether or not a document to be generated by the board, approved by the board, whatever, in particular resolutions, is there any conflict? We don't want to be in a situation where we make our review to an outside, not outside, but to another entity, another person, another director, a director, staff, another committee, whatever. And that entity goes forward with something to the board of directors, and we're sitting there looking at it and say, what happened? We gave them our views on this. What happened to our views? We don't want to be in that position, so we're at least skeptical of being an advisory body, independent of or separate from that direct line to the board of directors. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments?
Pam Takash, 16 Rabbit Run Lane. I have just a suggestion, maybe, from the pool's point of view of what's going on there. People come in that are not residents, and we understand the pools are not open to the public, all right? But people come in, and the ladies or the girls or the boys at the pool that, are you a resident? Yes. They don't ask to see any ID, they don't ask to see a driver's license or our membership card, anything. So they charge them, $8, whatever it is. Why can't it be at least something seen that they live here, belong here? And then if they don't, why isn't the rate a lot higher than what we pay? You know, if you charged everybody let's say $20 or $25 to come in and use the pool, you'd at least be making some money to go toward taking care of
Yeah, otherwise,
the pool, the pools, let's say.
it's up to you.
Other than that, our association fees are covering the maintenance, and we're also paying to get into the pools. And a lot of places don't even charge the people that live there to get into the pools. So what I'm saying is, try to make some money from the people that don't live here. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Other public comments?
Good morning, Nate Dowdy, 67 Bird Nest. A couple things, a couple quick points. First, I appreciate the team's rededication to infrastructure, roads, drainage, bulkheads. It needs your daily focus, and I appreciate that. Also, driving by the sports core pool, obviously I couldn't see it up close, but the paving, something that was overdue in my opinion and needed to be done. But to echo a comment or two here that has been previously made, if the board is not following and enforcing its own bylaws, its own resolutions and deed restrictions, you're diminishing the enforceability of all of it, in my opinion. So, there are governing rules of this association. Live by them. Lastly, John, you mentioned the importance of safety, and I couldn't agree more. In my
Travels.
exit of Ocean Pines earlier in the year, I pointed out to the board the importance of paying attention to employee safety. Workers' compensation costs were going up. We had a lot of claims, some preventable, and there are just practices here that can be improved to prevent potential costs and, more importantly, injuries and so forth to the workforce. So I hope that there's been some refocus and paying attention to employee safety, personal protective equipment, and that sort of thing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good comment.
Yeah, and obviously on the safety, we agree with you, Nate, and we actually have a team working on that. Thank you for bringing that.
Hello, my name is Steve Stein. I live at 2 Grandport Road. My question is this: we have our comments that we present to the board. We never hear back from the board. My big thing is a referendum amendment that somebody had commented previously, and whatever comments we make, when do we hear back from you? We never hear any comments back from the board. We would like to know, or I'd like to know, when will that take place, or how does that take place? Can you please tell us, or we could get some response from you?
A couple of venues, if you were here at the beginning of the meeting, what I decided to do this year was turn public comments and being not be so stringent, just basically saying it's a comment, we can have a little more interaction. So if it's a reasonable level of being able to provide an answer to you, then we can do it right now. Again, what I want to avoid is turning it into a 30 or 45-minute debate. The second part is emails to directors at oceanpines.org. One of the things that we talked about at the orientation meeting was to be a little more responsive to those kinds of things and try to do a better job of reaching out to the membership when a question is asked. So those are two venues that I think you'll see some improvement in. And then obviously there might be some singular circumstances that require some one-on-one phone call or so on and so forth, and I certainly believe that can happen too as needed. So I think if you exercise those two venues, hopefully that will get you the information that you need. Now, that also puts the onus on us to A, in a public meeting like this, clearly deliver on what we said we're going to do, and then B, obviously, if you send an email, obviously the onus is on us to make sure that we get that information back to you, and we'll pledge to do that.
Well, I hope that takes place in the future, because in the past I've sent emails and I've got no response, and I'm not the only one. Many of us have sent you emails, and nobody on the board responds, so.
Point taken, I have to agree with that, and we'll do a better job. Other public comments? Seeing none, I'll close. Yeah, and just an FYI, the
That's assuming you can get out.
Yeah, I know, right? board member
Tater
can
tots
make
last
a
night.
public comment as a member of the association.
Tom Janusek, 17 Lookout Point. I just want to let everybody know, still a liaison to the Environmental Committee, and I wanted everybody to remember the next Sunday is our Bay Day coming up here at in the park out here. We have over 34 exhibitors coming out. There's animals and a free boat ride and kayak rides, and everything is free. It's open to the public. Bring the kids. It was a great experience last year. Sorry we missed it in May, only because of the rain, but it's coming up next Sunday, 11:30 to 3:30. I just thought it was my duty as still being a liaison to the Environmental Committee to make sure that everybody knows about it and gets out there, because it's a great, great event. It showcases what we can do to keep nutrients from getting into our waterways and to keep our waterways clean. So it's very important. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna do kayaks in the park.
Yeah, go to kayaks in the park. I'll push it.
Well, I just wanted to be clear.
I know it's
Other questions? John, can you give a hand to the member?
Yes.
Thank you, Boyd. In 40 years I've been coming to meetings, this has been the best one I ever went to. I can understand a lot of the information, which is great. What I want to comment on, Star Charity, starting tomorrow, is collecting gifts for our soldiers overseas, holiday gifts. So we'll be putting containers all around the neighborhood, so the National Guard will pick it up at the end of October and send the gifts overseas. So I hope you'll support us. Thank you.
Thank you. Other public comments? Seeing none, I'll close the floor for public comments and move on to the next item on the agenda, and that is capital purchase requests. As of this meeting, we have none registered. The next item on the agenda is CPI violations. Be advised that per the amending of the agenda, we can remove 110 Windjammer Road from CPI violations so they're not in compliance. The next item is 546 Ocean Parkway.
Yes, 546 Ocean Parkway, violation maintenance. So the recommendation is to send to OPA attorney for action.
I'll entertain a motion to find 546 Ocean Parkway in continuing violation. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of finding 546 Ocean Parkway in continuing violation, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And just Colette, Frank voted, he said yes. All right. Next item on CPI violations is 3 Bayview Court.
Yes. Violation, unregistered vehicle and debris. Recommendation, sent to OPA attorney for action.
I'll entertain a motion to find 3 Bayview Court in continuing violation.
So moved.
Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of finding 3 Bayview Court in continuing violation, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. That's it for CPI violations. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is unfinished business. We have no unfinished business from the previous meeting. Therefore, we will move forward to new business. First item on new business is funding new capital. A motion to fund new capital. Larry.
I move to direct the general manager to establish, I move to direct the general manager to establish a new capital reserve fund to be funded as of fiscal year 2020-2021, as provided by section 6.03 of the Ocean County Association bylaw. The background. The current funding for new capital requires the board to budget projects through the operational budget. The effect of the new capital cost is directly added to the annual assessment each year. Controlling the increase in the annual assessment has and can continue to cause this and future boards to attempt to control the assessment increases by not making necessary capital purchases. The scope of the controlled new capital is defined as assets with functionality that were never previously owned by Ocean Pines. It also includes increase in design capacity and existing assets. Funding for the account will come from up to 10% of the yearly replacement reserves. The size, the account shall not exceed $1 million after the yearly contribution of the new fiscal year. A maximum of $500,000 may be spent in any one fiscal year. Access to the account, funds in this account, the account will not be used for any other expenditures unless approved by a unanimous vote of the Board of Directors. Purpose and effect. A reserve account dedicated to new capital expenditures will allow for better financial planning and control without directly impacting the association's yearly assessment.
Listen, I had the wrong date, it's October 1st. I'm sorry.
It will also eliminate the tendency to forego necessary capital projects because of direct impact on the annual assessment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Colette?
I have a couple of concerns. One is that I think the not to exceed figures are high. I would be a lot more comfortable with a lower maximum spend in the fiscal year and also the total amount in the fund. I think those are excessive based on previous spending patterns in the association. And then also hearing Jim Trumbull's report and receiving Joe Reynolds' email, I do think we need to look at how this fits into the way we do business with the clients. So I think I would not be ready to vote on this today, but I think in concept, I'm in full agreement with it, but I think there's some work that needs to be done before I'm ready to vote.
Other discussion? Steve?
I would just agree with Colette on that. I think, especially based on Jim's comments, that we better to hold on this and make sure we're in compliance with FO3 and then come back to the board for approval. I do support the idea of a new capital fund. I think it is important and I think we need to have it, but I think we got to go through the proper channels to get it.
Yeah, I'll comment. So a couple of things on mind. Again, I agree in concept with this. I have a little bit of a concern and would want some verification that we're not violating either any law or any accounting procedure by taking money from a reserve fund and moving it into another fund. Okay, so that's one of my concerns. Second concern, obviously, has to do with process and adherence to the bylaws and the resolutions. Clearly, I understand the intent, but I think we absolutely have to go back through and look at the process because this isn't the way to do it. We do need to follow established rules on how to address and setting up a new fund. And obviously, I think, and I defer to our accountants, I don't know that we can call it a reserve fund. I think we need to call it a capital expense fund because it's clearly not part of reserves. The third thing that sort of concerns me that we have to address, and that is, what's the target? What's the strategic planning that's been done over the next 1 to 2 to 5 years to start looking at things that we think may either A, come up for replacement that may maybe not covered by the reserve, or B, as an addition that's demanded by the membership. In other words, I don't see that particular list of things that we would be looking at. So part of me, and I'm being a little bit sort of insensitive here, part of me says we're just creating a fund to do stuff that we don't know what we want to do with it. Okay, so I'd much rather have a group of folks get together with input from the community to say, what are the areas that we should consider? I think at one point, somebody, was it last year or the year before, we talked about adding benches and some other things on the south pond walking path. Okay, so that should be a new capital expense. If we had those kinds of things targeted, I'd feel a lot better about the concept of building this capital expense fund with the idea that, rather than just coming up with some, oh, well, we've got, after 2 years, we've got $300,000 in the bank, what do we want to spend it on? That approach doesn't appeal to me. But so I think we've got a lot of work to do. I am not in support of the motion today. I'm in support of the concept, and I think we have to do some homework to go back and really get things right, put it in line with our bylaws, and have a target for spending over the next 1 to 2 to 3 years.
Let me address.
Excuse me, wait.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Guys, and I'm sorry for all the new directors, just be advised, Robert's Rules of Orders, please, ask to be, recognized by the chair so we can keep the comments and the discussions flowing. So I think Camille, you're
Yes.
next.
I've, where do we hit?
The mouth on it.
Oh, no, okay, is that it?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. I, as a new director, certainly appreciated the opportunity I had to speak with Larry personally on the phone about this to try to educate myself about it. And I was ready to vote in the affirmative on that today, but I appreciated all the comments that have been made here. I think I am the liaison to the bylaws committee, if I remember correctly. And with the comments being made, I would like to have that added bit of information before I can make a decision on this. So I would also be in favor of tabling this motion until that recommendation can come forward. Thank you.
Larry?
Yeah, let me address, and I appreciate all the comments. Let me address a little bit of the financial side of this. We looked at what we're actually spending for new capital over the last 6 years. Last year, we only spent $27,000. And the reason for that is that with our deficit being $1 million that we're trying to recover from, the board, and of course, Budget and Finance and the General Manager, we tried to keep that spend down to a minimum number. Over the last 5 years, and this is just to add some financial perspective to the intent of this motion, over the last 5 years, including that $27,000, we spent an average of $117,000. If you remove the last year's spend of $27,000, that number goes up to $140,000 in new capital the prior 4 years. The prior 5 years, which would include that 6th year that I was talking about, the number is closer to $150,000. So what those numbers do not entail are the projects that were brought forward by the department heads to the general manager that were discussed and not approved because the attempt to control the assessment on the association. So the real intent of this motion is not to create some fund of money to look for projects. The reality of it is we're spending somewhere between $125,000 to $150,000 a year on new capital. The idea is to have the sum of money put aside so that the board will not have the tendency not to improve or approve new funding requests that are either required or are for the good of the community, for the quality of life in the community, which is the way it's been handled in the past. So that's really the financial background behind it, and the real purpose of the fund. This is not this fund is the numbers are low enough that it does not establish an amount of money that some major large project can be done, because the numbers just aren't there. In discussion with some of the fellow board members, we've discussed whether or not we wanted to reduce the maximum amount of the fund as it builds through the years, and also whether or not we want to lower the maximum amount of spend per year. The other side of this, and again, I agree that looking at the resolutions as Jim Trummell has suggested, I have no problem with that. The other side of this is, from a financial standpoint, this association is over 50 years old. This is something that should have been done long before now. There should be a method to fund our new capital without having to directly impact our profit and loss statement on the general manager's budget. You also saw from one of John's slides that with the with us not depreciating items under $5,000, it's having a negative impact on his profit and loss this year of about $12,000, and that number could increase. We, in our discussions, I think we project maybe that number will hit $20,000, but at this point it's $12,000. If you remember the discussions from our the DNA study, the goal and objective that we reached as a board and as the Budget and Finance Committee was to have replacement reserves available at somewhere between 22 and 28% of our capital assets. By at the end of this year, when we make the $4.3 million spend, excuse me, from our replacement reserves, that number will be down to about 15%. We did projections to see how long will it take us to get back to the level 22% where we think is a minimum where we should be. Based on our spend this year, it looks like that's a 2.5 year to 3 year time period, which is perfectly acceptable because we're going to spend a large amount of money on our projects this year. By establishing this account, and as long as it comports with our DRs or our resolutions, it would extend that time period by just 1 year. So to get to the 22%. So from a financial impact, if that's all gobbledygook, or if it makes sense, from a financial impact, it has a minimal impact on our replacement reserve funding and getting to our goal of 22 to 28%. And it eliminates the problem of boards making a decision on new capital spends because of the impact that it has on the assessment. So that's really the financial reasonings behind it, but I certainly would not have a problem if someone makes a motion to table this and we do a little more work on it.
Thank you. Sorry. I can't spell like Larry does about all the numbers, but what's wrong? You closer?
Turn it on.
It is on. It's just a red light. I don't get a light. I'm not special. 4 weeks. I reached out to Larry to send me the new capital expenditures for the last 5 years, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I don't agree with it personally. I don't think I would support it the way it's set up. I thank Jim Trumbull and Joe for going through the resolutions side of it, and I think we should table it and at least get it on board the way it should be. But secondly, I have a problem, like Doug said, with putting together a new fund of money, and I don't say our board is going to use it for something extravagantly stupid, but who knows that the future boards won't want to do that. So I just, to me, it's just another fund that's going to grow and grow. If I look at the numbers you sent me for the last 5 years, some of the numbers, not all, obviously I didn't go into great detail, but some of those should have been replacement reserve numbers, not new capital numbers. I did go into a couple of those. So I don't know how completely accurate the numbers are from the last 5 years, but I'm not comfortable setting up a new capital fund for future projects that we don't know what they are, just to have the money sitting there, and we'll get another board in here in 3 years that'll decide that, oh my goodness, it would be great to have a whole canopy over top of the tennis courts or something incredible, which has no problem with that either, by the way. I love tennis. So that's where I am now. I would also say if we could table it, that would probably be good. We'll go through with the bylaws and resolutions committee and get it correct, and then maybe go forward from there, maybe have some more discussion about it. So that's where I am. That's Frank.
And reach out to Frank.
Hey, Frank? Frank, do you have any comments?
Yeah, pretty much the comments, I agree with the comments. I think we should table it for 3 reasons. Number one, I remain opposed to collecting any money without a plan from the GM, talked with the community and approved by the board to spend it. It is develops a slush fund. Second, there's the technical issues with it in terms of resolutions. Third, I still want to look at alternate numbers of funding methods of funding, because at the end of the day, if you take from replacement reserves, you have to replace what you take. And that does go to the assessment this year to the tune of $200. I'm still somewhat intrigued about what the FERC does. I don't know if we can legally do it, but I'd like to research it before I make my final vote. And just the other final comments about developing a fund and the controls. I really appreciate what Larry tried to do with the controls, but I agree that in a resolution form, any four people in the future can bypass that resolution and rescind it. I think if we want something for new capital and want to lock it down, as much as it might be distasteful, we may have to go to referendum to do that, to lock down the way that we collect and to lock down the way that we preserve it. That are my comments.
Thank you, Larry. Any other discussion? I'm sorry, Frank. Yeah. So I'd like to make a suggestion that I think will clean things up with regard to Robert's Rules of Order and how we proceed. Rather than tabling the motion, Larry, would you consider withdrawing the motion? Therefore, we don't have to vote it down or table it. And then we can do, I believe, what, if I may speak for everybody, we're suggesting we've got some more homework to do with regard to following up with the Bylaws and Resolutions Committee, a little more on the controls and so on and so forth. Would that be acceptable?
Sure. Yes.
All right, so if you are,
I'd like to withdraw my motion.
very good. I think it's important that this was a very good discussion. I think it's a very good start on this, and it proves that it isn't a simple transaction. It requires a lot of thought, and it requires some input and some really, kind of future-proofing so that we understand how this money, if we create this fund, will be used properly. So thank you for the discussion. Thank you for withdrawing the motion, Larry. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. That is a motion for a referendum for the board expenditure limit. Steve.
Thank you. I move that the Ocean Pines Board of Directors presents a referendum to the Ocean Pines Association membership to have a yes or no vote on whether to change the bylaws such that the allowable single capital expenditure would be reduced from 20% of current income from annual charges to 12% of income from annual charges. Background. There's been considerable discussion among association members about board expenditures, particularly the amount of money that can be spent on a single capital project with the approval of the majority of the board. Further, a petition was received by the board secretary on August 12 requesting that the board conduct a referendum on the issue of expenditure limits. The petition was signed by 808 residents who could be verified as eligible to vote in an election or on a referendum. This represents over 10% of our membership who are willing to sign a petition. The interest in the level of expenditure, in my opinion, is higher than what is reflected by the number of signatories to the petition. A referendum offered by the Board of Directors will put the decision on expenditure level in the hands of association members, as requested by the petition presented to the Board. Purpose and effect. The purpose of this motion is to give association members the opportunity to vote on whether the single capital expenditure level that can be approved by a board majority should remain at 20% or be reduced to 12%. The effect is that the level of expenditure would be set by association members and give direction to this and future boards on single capital expenditures.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion.
Yeah, I'll just say that I was one of the members who received the petition and decided not to sign it. And the reason, there were a number of reasons for that as a member, but I chose not to do that. As a director, of course, I have to think about it a little bit differently. And I think what we're really concerned about here is not how much money, what the spending threshold is. I think what we're concerned about is a fear of runaway spending by any board. And I think people are concerned that we waste money on projects. I think that the clubhouse has been a case study in maybe wasteful approach to solving a long-term problem. It's also a case study in how long it takes for boards to come to a decision about what's the best solution for dealing with our assets. So I don't know that changing the spending threshold is gonna solve that problem. We could waste $500,000 with this plan in place, and nobody wants us to waste $500,000 without a member voting on it. So I don't think the dollar figure is really the issue. I think we talked in the previous motion about the idea of strategic planning. That's something that this board has been committed to working on. And I think if we can put in place the practice of strategic planning that looks at not only new capital but also replacement spending, that will help put the reins on any unfettered spending that we've been concerned about in the past. And the other thing I think that this clubhouse is a real case study in is the importance of the board doing their homework before they make their final decision about how they're going to solve a problem. The homework that was done in the clubhouse took a couple of years to get done and took the gathering of minds from membership and change of board. But I think that that's the commitment that we as a board need to make to the community, that we are going to do that strategic planning, we are going to do our homework, and we're going to gather the information that we need on every project so that we can present it to the membership in a way that makes it easy for them to see that the plans that we have in place are rational and responsible. So, I appreciate the concept of this, but I'm not sure that it's a motion that I would be prepared to support because I don't think it really solves the real problem.
Other discussion, Larry?
Again, I've expressed to Steve that I understand his concern and his willingness to address this issue. From my perspective, the first thing that I looked at is whether or not I believe the 20% number in our bylaws is reasonable, and I believe it is. I don't think that, as I would echo Colette's comments, that it's not the number, it's the process. And I think what went on with this clubhouse and what has gone on with the other buildings that we're in the process of doing, the process has been open, the community has been involved, the board and the work teams that John put together have done everything they can to find solutions at an economic benefit for the association. The other item that concerns me is that the association, the petition drive that was done was, as our attorney stated, and my own reading of the petition really does not comply with what is required. If the group that did the petition feels that our attorney's opinion is wrong, then they're perfectly welcome to redo their petition and submit it again. And if it's done properly and if the appropriate 10% is obtained, then I would be happy to do the referendum. But I'm not in favor of doing a referendum, spending the additional money that we would have to spend on this referendum, and quite honestly, if you look at our recent election, the board election, 40%, we had a 40% return rate of votes. To get this to have a referendum approved, you have to have just over 50% of the community approve it. I think it would even, if we have to do it, if the committee submits an appropriate petition and they have the numbers, we'll do what we have to do. But quite honestly, I would be very surprised if we even got the 40% response rate, let alone a 50% approval rate for the referendum. In my mind, this is another area where money would be wasted, and I don't think I can support that.
So you need half of all blocks to vote yes?
Larry, I don't think it's 50% of the community. I think it's 50% of the votes cast.
That's right.
Is what determines whether it passes or fails. That's a big difference, just so you know.
Others, Tom?
Yeah, we have had a lot of discussion about this with the board and a lot of other people as well. We spend money, everybody, I ran on fiscal conservatism here, and we spend money on the attorney to look this petition over, and he gave his opinion. And, you know what they say about opinions. It's one of those things that it could be right, it could be wrong, but I'm gonna take him at his word as the petition is not being valid. Secondly, I don't think the spend of 20% is too high for projects that we might have come up, even though we really have no big projects coming up. I think it's a trust issue, plain and simple. I think that boards in the past have spent extravagantly and the public hasn't been informed. And I agree with Colette, it's just an informational thing. We're gonna let everybody know what's going on. If you need to know what's going on with the clubhouse, come down to the clubhouse, meet John, meet Larry, and we can walk it with you, no problem. I think it's just a trust issue, and we're working as a board very well together so far. It's been all of 3 weeks. So, but I just don't think I can support it just for the simple fact that it was put down by our attorney, and we're going to spend more money doing the referendum, another 10 grand or whatever that number is going to be, and just to reduce it. And then let's say we have a major project that we want to do, then we have to go out to referendum again. So now you're looking at, instead of planning a major project for 7 months, you're looking at planning it for 12 to 14, because you've got to get all the paperwork out, get it all approved from the public. So that would be my reason for it.
Other discussion?
Frank, you got anything?
Pretty detailed response to all the board members. But here's what, and I would share that with anybody that wants to see it. But here's my feeling on it. I'm not sure that we have a problem, but I am sure that if we have a problem, neither this resolution nor the attorney's petition will solve it. I don't believe that you can close one door and still leave the bypass, which any board that behaves in a way that has been connotated as negative, could easily use to bypass the threshold. So if we have a problem, let's close all the doors to it and address it that way. Let's come to halfway, and for that reason, I'm opposed to this resolution.
Thanks, Frank. Other discussion?
Yeah, I want to make a few more comments. But I want to explain, at least to the community, and I understand it's probably going to pass, but it's important to me that the community understand why I presented this motion. I think a significant number of Ocean Pines residents have expressed a desire to see a referendum on the issue of the amount of capital expenditure that would require a referendum. Secondly, the effort to provide a petition to the board is substantial, and the petition presented on August 12th has the required verified signatures to warrant consideration. They had 808 signatures. That is enough to require a referendum. Resolution B07 provides the criteria for a petition to be considered. Item 4 gives samples of what a petition format and wording should be, and it states very clearly the exact format is not required if the information is legible and understandable. The purpose of a petition is to request a special meeting for a membership to discuss streetlights for Ocean Pines. That's a sample of how it's supposed to be worded. I won't go into reading for you the whole section of the bylaws. The attorney has rendered an opinion, and I agree with Tom, an opinion is an opinion. From Tucker's 8/2019 opinion, the board expenditure petition, the referendum question to be presented to the members to vote on is, should OPA bylaws, section 513B1, be amended to read, if the total estimated cost capitalized in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles of any single capital expenditure exceeds $1 million, the proposed single capital expenditure shall require approval of the members by a referendum. That's how the petition was worded. The bylaws do not require that it be an exact format. Tucker's argument hinges on the word should. In his interpretation, the petition question asks if the bylaws should be amended, but does not propose a specific amendment to the bylaws. Tucker states, as the petition seeks no referendum to amend the bylaws and does not request action by the Board of Directors, the petition does not meet the requirement for an action appropriate for submission to the members on a referendum as required by Section 408 of the bylaws. End of the quote from Tucker. The petition, while perhaps not worded perfectly, does, in my opinion, ask that the bylaws be amended to reduce the single capital expenditure, and amending the bylaws does not require a referendum. Does, in my opinion, ask the bylaws be amended to reduce the single capital expenditure, and amending the bylaws does not require a referendum per the bylaws of Section 1102. The reduction of the capital expenditure threshold, when based on a percentage of the annual charges, considers inflation and increases in assessments, so keeping it at a percent rather than a dollar amount. The reduction of the capital expenditures threshold also has another benefit. If this Board of Directors or any board envisions a project that would require an expenditure above the threshold, they would have to carefully plan the project, demonstrate the need and the importance of the expenditure, and present a referendum to the community. This approach demands a strategic plan and careful consultation with the reserve study. The cost of the referendum could be considered as part of the overall project. I actually did get a quote that it would cost about $10,000 to do the referendum. That's my rationale for why I feel it's important that this board submit this to a referendum for our community.
Further conversation? So I got a couple of points. First of all, and I think I'm very sort of encouraged, this new board, it's interesting to watch our initial interaction on a pretty important topic. I think we collectively went back and forth with emails, with conversations. We expressed opinions that differed from one another. We fed off each other's different perspectives. And I think the process in and of itself really showed that this board, at least right now, understands how to work together, how to address a tough issue, and share information both in agreement and in disagreement. Bring up one point. I think it's also important to note that while I agree in concept of what Steve's trying to do, he and I had conversations about this as well. And I want to send a message to the membership that we didn't just say, oh good, we can dismiss this petition on a wording technicality. Right? Because we could have taken that approach, because that's what our attorney said so. But I think it's important to say that's not how we thought. We wanted to go back and forth with different perspectives on what if, how come, and so on and so forth, and really shared a lot of ideas that, that really were relevant to this particular topic. And I also want to take off something, because this is something that Colette mentioned, and I think it warrants it. It's not a number, okay? If we are held and let's say it ends up being $1 million. The fact that now, instead of being able to spend $1.7 million, we're only allowed to spend $1 million, does not make us automatically fiduciarily responsible. We could waste $500,000 in a very, unprofessional manner. Okay, so the number is a number is a number. Tom brought up another point that I considered as well, and I commend that, and that's trust. The idea here is that whether or not we can spend, like I said, $500,000, $1 million, or $2 million isn't really the issue. The issue is, are we doing it in a financially and fiduciarily responsible manner? And I think that limit puts the right umbrella and controls over the spending. The time value of money with regard to inflation and those kinds of things also comes into factor. So that's why I think the percentage is far more effective. And I think that's what the original folks who put the bylaws together back, I don't know if this was there in 2008 when the last bylaw was done, but they were thinking about the time value of money and therefore put a percentage in there. So for all the right reasons, I think the motion has merit. But at this point, given those things and discussions we had in the past, I can't see spending the additional monies at this point for the referendum as stated. So, other comments?
Doug?
Yeah, no.
Just one.
Any comments from the floor? You take any comments from the floor?
No, sir.
When we were all running for this position as director of the board, I made a commitment to everyone that I really wanted to hear what the community wanted. And I really wanted to include the community to the best of my ability in the strategic planning process, and I intend to honor that commitment and obligation. I too share Steve's concern, and Steve and I have talked about this, that when there is a use of your money that seems to be very large, having your input into how that money gets spent is important. It really is very, very, very important, and I think there's some avenues to doing that using the email process that we have, or contacting one of us independently, or inviting us to a forum where you want to do something in your home or in your community. I'm not sure that that setting the cap on this referendum is exactly where I want to go right now. But I think that we also need to ensure that we have the avenues available when there is an expenditure that's going to be in excess of $1 million, and I'm not exactly sure what that answer should be at this point.
Other comments? Colette?
The only other comment I want to make is to thank Steve for this motion. I think he's articulated very well concerns that we need to think about as a board, and it generated some really useful discussion among us about responsibility and spending, and it really caused us to think about larger issues that we need to solve to address, what I think we all agree are trust issues and how we approach our decision-making about major spends. It was easy as a member to look at the petition and just say, I'm not in support of this. It's a lot harder as a director to articulate very clearly why my decision as a director not to support a motion like this, how I can support that to myself, and how I can support that to you as members. So I want to thank you, Steve, for this motion. I think that this has been a great discussion.
Other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye. Thank you.
Frank?
Frank, opposed? Nay.
Okay. Thank you. Any abstentions?
That's 6-1,
Motion defeated.
6-1.
All right, that finishes the agenda item for new business. We'll move into appointments. Please be advised that the list you see up here has been adjusted based on our amending the agenda. At the end, we've also asked that Tom Piatti be appointed first-term budget finance. I'll entertain a motion to take all these at once, or if there's any concern, if not, then second, any discussion on any one of the individuals for appointments? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of accepting this slate of appointments in total, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah, I went to Ed Wells down there.
Thank you. Then the appointments are made, it will be filed. That being the end of the agenda, I will entertain a motion for adjournment. Your second? Second. All in favor? Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Frank. Have fun.